Hi, everyone. Apologies for the tech issues. It seems some of our panels are having some tech issues tonight. So let's start us off from the top. My name's Austin. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am based out of Philly, DSA, and I'm a member of the National Electoral Committee, and I will be your moderator tonight. With us tonight on the panel are Mike Nachbar, the chair of the National Electoral Committee, and Richie Floyd, one of our nationally endorsed candidates who's running for city council. Richie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, my name's Richie Floyd, he, him, and I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, running for city council. I'm a longtime DSA member and middle school teacher and former union steward, a member of Pinellas DSA.
Great, thank you, comrade. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, sorry everyone for the tech issues. My name is Mike Nachbar. I'm from Austin, Texas. I have Spectrum Internet, which seems to be of decent quality, but as Austin said, I'm the chair of the National Electoral Committee, and I've been Heidi Sloan ran for Congress. Jose Garza successfully ran for district attorney on an abolitionist platform. We lost a ballot initiative on homelessness. Greg Casar was elected to city council. So going to try to talk about those different campaigns and some of the lessons we've learned from them and some of the strategy we have going forward. So Austin, am I going to get started?
Go ahead, comrade. Take it away.
Okay, great. Well, everyone, thanks for being here. When we think about how we win elections, as Rashida sought to run for office, she wants us to find people who are at the table, not doing anything for working people and take their seat. And that's something when we go to run for office, there's four parts of a campaign I like to think about. Field, com, Richie can talk about how they're doing an amazing job on all four in his race. But yeah, let's start with the one that everyone hates, fundraising. It's a really unfortunate thing in our society, the way our political system works. Elections cost money. You have to hire staff, you have to print mailers. Just getting your message out there costs money. When you go to unions for endorsements, unions are going to ask you how much money you've raised. Now, there are plenty of examples of candidates winning when they're underfunded. It really doesn't cost as much, especially if you have a lot of volunteers, but you do need to think about fundraising. And, even DSA candidates spend a lot of their time on the phones raising money, going to fundraisers, going to events, dialing for dollars, doing all kinds of things. So, fundraising is a really, really big part of the campaign. And, it's not in part, I think we are socialists because we wish that money played less of a role in politics and power. But, if you're going to win a race, it's going to cost money. I think one thing we learned in 2020 is that the two DSA endorsed congressional candidates who took out incumbents were Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. And they both raised $1 million and were able to afford TV ads and really get their message out there and counter some of the negative things being said about them. So definitely, as we do elections, we got to think about fundraising. We got to have a plan. We got to be realistic in how much money we can raise and what races that'll let us run for. But fundraising is a big part. And I think luckily in DSA, we have dedicated comrades who will donate money. We do have a network of left-leaning people who maybe donated to Bernie who want to donate. And we're trying to do more nationally to raise more money for our candidates and make them competitive. But that's definitely the least fun part. The next part I'll talk about is endorsements. Endorsements make a big difference, and there's all kinds of endorsements. We want to get union endorsements. We want to get endorsements of big political figures. Now, obviously, it's going to be tough for our candidates. DSA people aren't going to get endorsed by Joe Biden. We're not going to get endorsed by most senators and governors. But I do think that it really is great to think locally and really, community leaders, church leaders, even activists, just individuals. Those endorsements really do make a difference, especially when you're running a grassroots campaign. as an example, Jose Garza in his race got big national endorsements. He got Bernie and Elizabeth Warren both endorsed him, but he also got a ton of criminal justice advocates, a lot of church leaders, and that all really helped. In the Heidi race, a place that really was a downside was that our opponent got the endorsement of almost every elected official. Heidi had Greg Casar, who's an amazing comrade in city council, but our opponent had all the state senators, all the state house members, and that definitely was a setback. So definitely be strategic, think about getting endorsements. In Heidi's race, we were able to get a dual endorsement from the state AFL-CIO, which, was good, but, I think had we gotten that union, it would have made a difference. So definitely be thinking about how do you get those endorsements, do a power map. Who are the influential politicians? Who are the influential unions? Who are the influential community leaders? And some endorsements you'll never get, but you might be surprised if you ask people, and you'll never get them if you don't ask. So definitely in your campaigns, be really strategic and think about how are you going to get endorsements. The next thing I'll talk about is communications. Got to get our message out there to people. And, there's lots of different kinds of communications. There's earned media and legacy media like newspapers and TV. There's social media, there's mailers. So these all play a difference. But, I think especially when we're talking about older voters, voters over 40, voters over 50, they still like legacy media. They read the newspaper, they watch TV. And, again, it's a big part of a campaign. Thinking about how you get earned media. Definitely you're going to be pitching journalists in your city, asking them to cover the campaign favorably. And I think there are things you can do strategically to get good coverage. When Heidi spoke at an anti-war rally around the time last year when we thought we might go to war with Iran, that was a really big event. Lots of media covered it. We got all kinds of papers. When Heidi got arrested with a demonstration with airline workers who are protesting low wages. Again, that was a really big event, got coverage in a lot of papers. So definitely be strategic about how you get that coverage. You might have to be sending messages to journalists every week for the whole campaign, and then finally at the end, they'll cover you. But those stories can make a big difference. Jose Garza in his race did an amazing job getting coverage. The incumbent DA had really, really done a bad job dealing with sexual violence. She'd led a lot of cases, basically had not prosecuted them, and kind of let them slip and really upset a lot of survivors. So he was able to get a lot of media coverage after that. And then when we had police shootings in our city, the incumbent basically took the police's side, and Jose was really able to polarize that issue and get lots of media coverage on it and really put that wedge issue in front of voters and get it done. So that was great. So again, in your campaigns, always be thinking about, how can you get media to cover your candidate and hopefully cover fairly. Now there obviously are disadvantages. If we obviously look at the Bernie race, a lot of media is loyal to the corporate Democrats or to Republicans or certainly not to socialists. So, it is an uphill battle, but, I think we can make relationships with journalists and we can get them to cover our stuff. And then we can close some of that gap through social media. And, social media is a great tool that, allows us to reach out to people. One general rule I've heard people say is you go on Twitter to get donations and volunteers, and you go on Facebook to get voters. There are just a lot more people on Facebook. So, on Twitter, stuff can go viral. You can definitely raise a lot of money. You can definitely get a profile, but there are a lot of voters and probably people who aren't as political on Facebook you can reach. So I think being creative, having videos or good content on Facebook can really spread well. And getting into groups, there are all kinds of Facebook groups, be them political, be them neighborhood groups, be them religious groups. Any way we can have our DSA members in those groups, in our networks, talking about our campaigns. That's a real great way to get our message. And on the Prop B campaign, I don't know if anyone on Austin is on this call, but some of us even ventured onto Nextdoor to argue with people and correct some of the information. And we have another ballot initiative coming up in November. We're probably going to have to do the same thing of getting our local Nextdoor groups and correcting some of the misinformation that our opponents spread. Nextdoor can definitely be scary, but a lot of people are on there, a lot of voters there. So I think it is a great tool to reach people. So the last part of a campaign, the most fun, the part that DSA does the best is field. Field is just reaching out to voters, talking to them, telling them about the campaign and asking for their vote. And there's all kinds of different ways to do field. You can do it door to door, which has obviously been tougher during COVID. You can do it phone banking over the phone. You can do text banking. And in my opinion, for my money, there's nothing better than door to door. Something about that face-to-face, in-person conversation. You can really reach people. You can really persuade people. You can really get people to see your point of view and see how your candidate is fighting for their interests. So it's a lot of fun. I know in DSA, we love to have big canvases. We'll meet up, have some tacos in the morning, have a rousing speech, go out, do it together, and then hang out afterwards. It's a really great time. Definitely the most fun part of any campaign. I know Richie's campaign has been putting up big numbers in Florida. We had a couple in Austin where we were doing them for Heidi, Bernie, and Jose, and Dominic Silvera, who is an amazing candidate for county attorney. We had canvases where we got 150, 200 people. They were super exciting. Can't wait till canvassing is back in person and we can do more events like that because they're a really great time. Definitely go into working class neighborhoods and just talk to people about their issues. Ask open-ended questions like, what's your experience with housing? What's your experience with healthcare? And 9 times out of 10, people are going to be fed up. And then you can really speak to them about how, your campaign is going to speak to their personal needs. And, I think that person-to-person campaigning is the best thing DSA does. It's our biggest strength. And definitely, I think the more we can do that for our candidates, the more our candidates are going to win. So if there's one thing to take away from this presentation, it's, once it's safe and you're comfortable doing it, go door to door and talk to voters. So I know we're running a little late because of tech issues, so I'm going to end mine, but I'm super excited for everyone here. And yeah, I hope people run for office, run campaigns, and knock on a lot of doors. Back to you, Austin.
Great. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to pass it over to our next panelist, DSA nationally endorsed candidate, Richie Floyd. Richie, take it away.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I'm going to take my time to tell you all about, a little bit about the campaign, but a little bit about what the campaign means for DSA, mostly locally, but nationally as well. And so, first, a little bit about me is, like I said before, I'm a teacher, a public school teacher, taught middle school and active in my union, delegate to the Labor Council for my union. So I have an appointed position in the union. And grew up from a union family. And so that kind of informs my politics. So we've been trying to reach out to labor as well. And the issues that we're running on in the campaign are working people's issues. I think like you'd expect any DSA candidate to do. But, we're a city just like anywhere else. We've got our issues with housing costs being just out of control. But we're also unique in that, we're in Florida. Right on the Gulf Coast. Actually, we're right on Tampa Bay, sandwiched in between Tampa Bay and the Gulf Coast. And we have a lot of environmental issues here. So that's front and center in our campaign. And then, just making sure people have better jobs, aren't discriminated against. It's a pretty typical thing with it's pretty typical campaign issues with just a little bit of Florida flavor. And then how we're running the campaign is what I really want to spend most of the time talking to you about. And so this has been a DSA-led endeavor. I'm a DSA member, have been since 2017, I think. DSA the field program for the campaign. If a volunteer shows up and isn't a DSA member, they're immediately bombarded by about 20 people asking them to join. And so we've been able to recruit well because of that. And really what this does is this helps us build our own organization. It helps us, learn how to organize in a clear and consistent way, because an electoral campaign is something with set goals, with a set time frame. And that's really great to have if if you've run a DSA chapter and you've wondered well, what can we do and what can we do effectively and what can we do that's simple, that people understand, people know what the stakes are. An electoral campaign really is the best answer for all of that, in my opinion. So we're able to recruit volunteers through this to DSA, recruit volunteers and then new DSA members. And really, that's just bringing people in from generally supportive to being active members of the chapter. But one of the best things that we do is we bring active members of the chapter, just passively involved, engaged occasionally, to super volunteers, to leaders in the campaign. You learn how to do all sorts of field stuff, in particular, because like Mike said, field is what DSA does best and what we're known for, and the funnest thing. So, you get to figure out how to cut lists, how to have these persuasion conversations, how to run a canvas, how to run a phone bank. These are things that, are valuable not just for electoral campaigns, but for any issue-based campaign you run in the future, or just general organizing in your community, or even labor organizing if you're having deep conversations with people. And so it really helps us get our experience up. And when it comes to field, it also helps us get our experience up with all the other things that Mike talked about as well. Communications is run by DSA members who, we have a team of people who work on the campaign social media accounts, and we have a team of people who create the graphics and videos for the campaign. And so we're able to build those skills up within our chapter and within the volunteers that help us. And we're building our own fundraising base as well. We don't just get money from the same people that your traditional Democrat politician would. Because those people aren't going to fund us for the most part. Some of them will. Some of them will be sympathetic and they'll be upset with the Democratic Party as well. But a lot of them, the special interest, real estate money, development money that really runs cities is not going to come calling, and they're not going to answer if you call them. So we're building our own fundraising base as well. And that means that we can have sustained, engaged supporters that maybe they can't volunteer, maybe they live somewhere else, maybe they just want to give, engaged with the campaign and with our work long term. And so, we're working on all of these things together in coordination, and it really helps to grow and bolster the chapter. And one thing that I want to mention is that running an electoral campaign and getting out and actually talking to people has grown the chapter, but it's also diversified our chapter. DSAs, we always talk about the demographics in DSA. Well, we've been able to attract actually something interesting here is that our county is very old. We're in Florida, in Pinellas County. St. Petersburg, Florida is traditionally a retirement community. For a very long time, our chapter was very old. And I know it's not a problem that a lot of people have, but attracted people of all ages with this campaign. And so, if you're a chapter that's very young and you run an electoral campaign, you might attract people that are older as well. But we've attracted a lot of younger people, people of color, students, that were maybe only vaguely aware, but we came to their house and we talked to them and it got them involved. And so it's really been great for recruiting in that respect. We also have made connections with other chapters really well because of this. We're in the Tampa Bay area, Central Florida, and there's a Tampa DSA chapter that we actually used to be a part of and we split off from amicably. And we've been able to coordinate with them a lot. They've been attending phone banks and canvases. It's only about a 30-minute drive from Tampa to St. Petersburg. And they come over a lot, and it's made it to where we've worked on other projects outside of the electoral campaign with them more often lately. And so we've been able to build really good we've been able to build really good relationships with them, but we've also been able to build really good relationships with like Orlando DSA, who's about 90 miles from here, maybe about an hour and a half away, who occasionally comes over and helps canvas, joins us for phone banks, and it's starting to help build like the nexus of a statewide formation here, which I know people are interested in DSA. So it's really helped us build relationships, and it's been something that's like exciting for people when, you know, it's been difficult sometimes to get people excited. Since the end of the Bernie campaign, the end of the protest movement last year, the Black Lives Matter protests last year, you need to have things that people can be excited about and can unite people. And an electoral campaign can do that. And so it's been really good for that reason as well. And a couple other things I have here are we've done a good job of connecting to labor organizations as well. Now, we have a pretty labor-focused chapter here. We have a lot of union members, people involved in their unions. There's other Central Labor Council delegates in our chapter as well. Myself and my wife are Labor Council delegates. And really, you know, we lean into talking to our coworkers about like what our union is supporting, what candidates our union is supporting. That way we get involved with, you know, rank and file workers, but we also are trying to, from the other end, raise the expectations of what organized labor should expect from a candidate. And so organized labor right now has been involved in politics that's, you know, trying to pick the best of a bad bunch, honestly, is what it is most of the time. I've been to these labor council screenings. They're very depressing. But, you know, labor has to engage in the political system in order to, you know, succeed and continue what they're doing. And so what we can do as DSA candidates is we can get in the race and we can say like, no, it doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to be picking the best of a bad bunch. You can get behind a candidate that's going to go out and fight for what you believe in and make sure that, you know, working people's issues are front and center, and run a campaign like that. And it's been incredibly encouraging, the response that we've gotten here from organized labor. I know it's difficult in other places, and we're maybe in a unique situation because organized labor just hasn't had it's just, you know, we're not in New York where it's 22% union density. We're in Tampa Bay, Florida. And so it's a different situation, but I think you really can start to make inroads there if you really put your mind to it. And a couple of the last things I want to let you know about is, one, because we've been able to attract a lot of students with this campaign, because students really get involved in electoral campaigns, we've been able to begin forming YDSA chapters in our area. And we don't have a major university in our area, not in our county, not in we have a couple of smaller universities, but there's a YDSA chapter starting on the campus of about a 5,000 person University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, is starting a YDSA chapter this fall. And it's from people that got involved in our campaign and then became DSA members. We have multiple high school students that got involved with our campaign, and now they're going back to their schools this fall as well to start YDSA clubs at their school. And when I say this fall, I mean school starts next week here. So, and it's not a good situation with COVID, but I'm not going to go there with y'all right now. So anyway, yeah, those are some of the biggest themes of the campaign. I will say, I'll give you sort of a status update now. Things have been going pretty well for us. The election is August 24th for the primary. Right now, the way that it works is it's a nonpartisan race, and the primary is everyone's in there, and then the top two vote getters from the primary go on. We have a unique situation here where the primary election is only in the district. So I'm running for District 8 City Council. It's in sort of central North St. Petersburg. And we've been talking to voters in District 8 for months now. But after the general election, should we get through on August 24th, which I'm optimistic about, we have to talk to voters across the entire city. The general election is at large, a citywide election. Suddenly, the amount of voters that are voting in the election goes up tenfold. It's 10 times as many. And this is what we're up against. And it was designed this way to stop candidates like myself, I'll be honest. It was designed to stop working class candidates. It was designed to stop Black candidates in St. Petersburg. And it's an unjust system that makes it difficult for anyone besides like those funded by the most special interests to get through. Having said all of that, I am very optimistic about our chances. We have been very successful in raising money from everyday people like you all. We've done an excellent job of getting the word out, and I think we're in a good position. So voting's, and then another thing to know is that voting has already started here. Mail voting is huge in Florida. The majority of people vote by mail now in Florida. And for a local election, the super majority of people vote by mail. And so it is August 3rd here today, and the election day is August 24th. And by our campaign's estimates, about 30% of people who are going to vote in this election have already voted, have already mailed their ballot back in and had it counted by the supervisor of elections. So we are literally in the middle of election day for about a month right now. And every day we're doing work, phone banking to get out the vote, phone banking people who've committed, phone banking people we're trying to get to commit, doing lit drops every day to remind people to vote, and canvassing all weekend long to make sure we get the vote out. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what we're in the midst of. And that's what a lot of this means to DSA. I think this is we've tried to run this as best as possible. We've tried to run this as best as possible as to set an example for what kind of a DSA campaign can be. And yeah, I mean, I see that there's some questions coming in. I don't know when we want to go to those, but I think I'm about at time.
Okay, great. Thank you, comrade. So yeah, we're going to start right now doing a section on audience Q&A. So if you would like to ask any questions of either Richie or Mike, feel free to put it in the chat, and one of our many awesome DSA staff members will forward it to us. So we've already started getting some questions. So the first is from Comrade Theo. How can a class struggle candidate / organizer in office motivate and promote political education? How do class struggle campaigns raise class consciousness and consolidate our supporters? Who wants to take a stab at this first question from Comrade Theo?
I could take a crack at it.
Go right ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so I want to give a good example from Austin. So DSA member Jose Garza was elected to district attorney, and something he did that was really awesome was saying that, you know, the majority of theft in Austin is wage theft. And, you know, he went out, said he was going to go after businesses that do wage theft. And to me, that was really good political education, just because, you know, with our media, you know, the way it is, whenever they talk about theft, you know, they're talking about people stealing from stores, and bosses doing wage theft, you know, that's just business. So, but I think we know as socialists that wage theft is theft. You know, you're stealing from working people, and that's actually the majority of theft in our country. So I think Jose making that point, you know, I think a lot of people had maybe never considered that before and never seen things that way. So I think both just having the platform to announce that, you know, forcing media to cover it, and then also, you know, having the teeth to actually go after bosses, and, you know, having a tip line where, you know, you can let his office know if there's wage theft. That, to me, that's a really great example of, you know, how you could use your office for political education.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but Jose Garza, before he ran for district attorney, he worked for a workers' defense project, correct?
Yes, we worked with him on an amazing campaign to win paid sick days for workers in Austin. We passed the law. Our horrible courts in Texas are still holding up the law, but you know, we're hoping at some point we can get it. And he's won other things for workers like water breaks, and he was an amazing organizer.
Okay, great. Richie, do you want to take a stab at the question?
Yeah, although I think Mike gave a really good example. I'll just briefly say that I think there was a second part of the question that was about consolidating our base. I think the most important thing about you know, the kind of campaigns that DSA runs is that field door-to-door connection with people. And so I think that's where the consolidating our base comes, when it especially used in conjunction with the kind of political education things Mike's talking about, is that we're not just, going to people's doors and saying, like, vote for us. Like, obviously that is the crux of it, but we're going back to people's doors multiple times and actually having persuasion conversations and getting to know them and them getting to know us as well. And, and I can speak again, only for Florida here, is that this is not something that happens here. It's completely foreign for anybody to even knock on doors in our state, for a variety of reasons. And so, it's a lot easier to, start to identify with people who are fighting for you, be it DSA or specific candidates, and their political issues if you are getting right in their face. And I think that's something that's key to, I think consolidating the base, I think, was the terminology used.
Absolutely. Great. So we have some more questions pouring in. This one is from Comrade Philip. There's a bit of friction in DSA regarding labor unions. One tendency feeling relatively pessimistic about union leadership and wanting to focus on a rank and file strategy / insurgency. And the other tendency, perhaps reflected by the Richie Floyd campaign, pulling the union leftward at the top. Is there a nuanced approach to this division related to electoral campaigns? Richie, why don't you take a stab at this question?
Yeah, I don't think there's tension in our campaign about it at all. Like, I am a rank and file union worker who's been organizing in a rank and file committee to change, rank and file caucus to change the shape of our union. And our union has not typically gotten involved in city elections and has gravitated towards getting involved in ours because of the rank and file workers that we've recently elected to our leadership body here locally. And so I don't think that there's tension there. I was trying to describe, like, we do both. Like, we encourage workers to push their union in one direction in an electoral campaign, as best as we can. And then, you can make sure that you open the eyes of leadership at the top as well. And I don't think there's any conflict necessarily in that within our campaign. I will say that it is more difficult to get, rank and file backing during a campaign, like during the campaign, than it is when you're doing the work before. But I think it goes hand in hand, because we were doing the work before here in our local unions that our DSA members have been a part of before we got into the campaign, and that has made things easier to interacting at the top. So I do think things can sort of work together.
Okay, so we're getting some questions. One is directly for Richie, asking, what is your website? I can take a stab at that. That's richiefloyd.com. There you can find out all about the issues that Richie's running his campaign on. Plus, if you want to volunteer to phone bank or donate to his campaign, you can also go to his website, which is richiefloyd.com. Looking at some of the other questions that we have here from Comrade Joy, I'm wondering how your chapters decide to run a campaign versus just endorsing candidates. Are there pros / cons beyond all the pros that Richie is talking about? Mike, why don't you take a stab at this question?
Yeah, definitely. In Austin, we've done both. We ran Heidi Sloan and Dominic Silvera, who I'd say were really like core DSA members, and really their campaigns kind of run out of DSA. And then someone like Jose Garza, was running, and we endorsed him, and he was an ally of ours before he ran, but he wasn't primarily a DSA member. I think running DSA members is great. It's super exciting to build the chapter. Members get to be part of the campaign. Just the excitement is just palpable in campaigns like that. I know it's that way in Richie's. I know it was that way in Heidi's and Dominic's. So I definitely think if chapters if you have good people who can run and the race makes sense, absolutely. I think the advantage to getting onto another campaign is, if there is someone really good running, you can sometimes, they might have a different base of support. Jose Garza, again, comes from Workers Defense, which is basically a nonprofit that organizes construction workers. And, mainly Latino construction workers here in Austin. And, we don't have a lot of construction workers in our membership. We have some, shout out to our electricians, but, I think Jose had a different base than us. So I think, it can definitely be good in certain situations, but I definitely, looking nationally at all the races we run, I'd like to see more chapters run their own candidates where it makes sense. I think the chapters that do, it's really been a great experience. And, not to say never endorse outside. I think there are definitely times it makes sense. But I would really love to see more chapters run homegrown members, because I think the ones that do and do it well have a great success.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. So we have some other questions, specifically dealing with the issue of like candidate accountability and how to hold elected officials accountable once we as DSA elect them to office. So yeah, we have a question from an anonymous comrade. How do we hold endorsed candidates accountable after the election? Mike, I think we've definitely had this issue on the National Electoral Committee, and we've had this discussion back and forth. So why don't you give your ideas of how we can hold candidates accountable once we get them elected?
Yeah, one thing we talk about is kind of that framing. Almost makes it sound like we're like expecting candidates to betray us, and it's like, what do we do after they betray us? And obviously, there are candidates who do disappointing things, and in Chicago they had to unendorse a candidate who basically took some really bad votes. But I think the thing maybe chapters don't think about is to spin that positively. Have a plan for after they get elected. Like, what campaigns are you going to work on together? How are you going to collaborate with the candidate? What are the candidate's goals and what are the chapter's goals? And, if someone gets elected, it's like, all right, well, what campaign are we going to do? Like, what's the first things we're going to try to pass? And I think the more we can make the candidate part of the chapter and see the chapter like as an asset, like when they're like, look, when I need to pass this bill, I need to get support. Like, I need people knocking doors and raising hell. And I know DSA is, going to be the best people to do that. I think the more we can think in those terms, and just the more, any relationship, communication is the key. Any marriage counselor will tell you that. And I think the more chapters can communicate with candidates about, what the shared goals are, I think the healthier it'll be. And then, I think it's just good to have those boundaries up front where, we all have things that our chapters have things that if candidates or elected officials do, we can't rock with them anymore. And I think just the more clear we are about those up front, the more candidates will know what's important to us. And in the event they do something that's really, we can't deal with, we'll have to make that painful decision. But again, I just think communication is really key.
Great. Thank you, Mike. So we have a question here from Comrade Peter. I'd like to hear some examples of how y'all put an explicitly class struggle spin on your typical municipal issues. Richie, why don't you take a go at this question?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that comes up for us at the doors is housing and housing affordability, and how, in most cities in America, the prices are spiraling out of control of housing. And so this is one where it's really easy to put class struggle and our economic system front and center, because the reason why housing prices are out of control is because housing is a commodity that's used to make a profit, a never-ending profit, a never-ending exponentially increasing profit, and that does not serve the needs of working people. It doesn't serve the needs of people at all. It only serves the needs of the capitalist class. And we've been able to get that message out as best as we can, because a lot of the affordable housing ideas here end up being just basically subsidization for developers' profits and landlords' rents. And so we use that message constantly. Like, this is the reason why our housing is unaffordable. It's something that is designed not for need, but for people to make money. And then we offer solutions that are taking housing out of the marketplace, which is things that we talk about here are expanding and improving our public housing, investing more in the local community land trusts and housing trusts. And those have made it to where it's clear lines of distinction drawn up. Like, right now, this issue is set up this way to serve the people at the top and not the working people of the city. And we want to serve the working people of the city. And so that's just one example. I think the best example of that we have on our campaign of how we draw sharp distinctions, because everyone in the city talks about affordable housing. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, we've been co-opted a lot on a lot of these issues because nowadays everyone wants to say for all at the end of their statement. We're going to build a city for all. We're going to do this for all, like, because Bernie popularized stuff like that. And so everyone's trying to say that, but it's you have to make key distinctions where you can. And housing's been one we've been able to do that in. Same with the environment here, because the reason why we've had some environmental catastrophes in recent months. This month we had a red tide emergency. It's because of pollution being spilled into our bay by people who are only concerned with profit. And so there's a lot of places you can draw sharp distinctions like that, I think.
Great, thank you, comrade. So we only have enough time left for maybe one, maybe two questions at the most. So if you have any questions you would like to ask our amazing panelists, make sure to put them in the chat. I'll choose probably one more. So one of our last questions will be, is from Comrade Ari. How are day-to-day field responsibilities, calling/confirming volunteers, kicking off canvases, reshifting volunteers, split between the campaign/campaign staff and the electoral committee of the DSA chapter involved? Curious to hear how different chapters handle these things. Richie, why don't you you kind of talked about this in your initial intro. Why don't you talk about how the DSA chapter operates with your campaign?
So because I'm a DSA member, I used to be co-chair of the chapter. I've been an organizer with them for a while. The line is blurred greatly. I mean, DSA technically runs the field operation itself. It's the electoral committee basically does the field operation. But the current operating chair of the electoral committee is also my wife, who lives with me and works on the campaign all the time. But she's technically just a DSA member who works on the campaign. She's not an official person in the campaign. And so, for us, because we've never endorsed a candidate outside of our immediate network, it's just been our chapter's electoral committee takes it up. And because we are a relatively small chapter, the campaign sucks up a lot of the air in the room, and we only get a few things done outside of it. I think we have 250 members right now, if that gives you guys any of an idea of what we're working with here. Although we do have high participation. I think we have about 50 or 60 people who do actively engage. But so it's not complicated for us, really. It's mostly the chapters really leading the work here.
Great, thank you. Mike, do you want to take a go at answering this question?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in the Heidi campaign, the lines really got blurred too. A lot of the staff was core members. Obviously, Heidi was a core member. Her partner, Dave, was a core member. And I don't know, in our minds, it was kind of a good problem to have. I mean, when everyone in the chapter is super excited and, wants to get involved with the campaign, I think it was a strength for both. And, I think it was amazing for the campaign. We had amazing volunteers at every level. And I think it was great for the chapter. A lot of people got campaign experience. A lot of people got to feel like they had ownership of it. So I don't know. I mean, I know other chapters kind of have more of a firewall, but the way we did it, I would say it worked for us. I'm not necessarily saying it worked for everybody, but I think it worked pretty well for us.
Okay, great. Thank you, comrades. So we're reaching the end of our allotted time for this panel. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Nachbar again, the chair of the NEC, to make a hard ask of all of our attendees on this call.
Yep. Would not be an organizer if we didn't have an ask for you at the end of this. So I just want to say, I'm on the National Electoral Committee. I see all the candidates we endorse nationally. We get to talk to the chapters. We get to see the candidates' campaigns. So many amazing candidates that DSA chapters are endorsing and doing. But this year in 2021, no offense to anyone else, but Richie's campaign is the most inspiring to me. And I know a lot of people feel that way. I mean, this campaign rocks. You know, it's building a huge chapter. It's really, really of strategic importance. You know, we need to get socialists elected in Florida. It's a really weak area for us. And having Richie there would just be tremendous. So what I want everyone to do is go to richiefloyd.com. If you have the means, please give some money. If you want to donate to one race this year, donate to Richie's. If you have friends with money, ask them to donate. If you have a Twitter or Facebook, you know, share the campaign and ask people to donate. And then put on your calendar August 12th, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to try to get comrades from around the country to get on a phone bank for Richie, that last push of GOTV. We want to do everything we can to win this race. Richie's such an amazing candidate. Pinellas DSA is doing such amazing things. August 12th, we're going to have an event. We're really, really going to try to get on those phones and you know, get that GOTV push. So again, richiefloyd.com. That's where you're going to donate. August 12th, 6 p.m. Eastern. That's when we're all going to get on the phone and phone bank. You know, we're going to try to set up an event here in Austin. We would love if chapters would set up events in your local, and we can just get a ton of people working those phones and taking Richie over the finish line of this primary.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I also want to thank Richie Floyd for taking the time out of his day to come speak with, or evening to come speak with us here at the DSA National Convention. I want to thank all of our attendees who came to our panel. I know right after this call ends, I'm going to make a donation to Richie Floyd, and I too will be making phone calls on August 12th. So I hope to see all of you there. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening, comrades. Solidarity forever. Bye.